Hello folks, I'm Anita Rao, here to speak about the month of June, and as usual, if you prefer to read about the overall trends this month, please see my website for more details. Yeah, so let's get into this. Okay, so what's happening in June? By June, for many people, a new path may have opened up, and there would have been some changes that would have occurred that perhaps you may not have been able to control in your life because of the two powerful eclipses that we had. One was at the end of April, and one was in the middle of May, which possibly would have been more turbulent. Events that tend to transpire due to eclipses can manifest within a week of the eclipse, within a month, within 3 months, or sometimes even within 6 months. But you'll get a hint of what's to come if it hasn't already transpired. And what happens is, if there's a slow-moving planet, it could be Rahu, Ketu, Jupiter, Saturn, it could even be Mars, that is transiting over that eclipse degree or close to it in the future, then it could trigger that. And whatever had come up at that eclipse point, you would see some further developments there. So generally, I think June will feel a bit slower than the last 2 months. We have Rahu going from Kritika to Parani Nakshatra, and then we also have the Saturn retrograde phase happening. The first event of the month is, of course, Mercury turning direct in Taurus on June the 3rd, which is great news. As usual, this means receiving some clarity in matters connected to any kind of communication. It could be travel related, it could be financial agreements. This is particularly the case because we're talking about Taurus. So check to see where Taurus falls in your chart to see which areas of your life may have been impacted, and you can now kind of forge ahead in those areas. This Mercury retrograde phase would have been particularly difficult actually for many people, because it was making very tense aspects with the other planets. It was also being aspected by a difficult Mars placement. But it will feel a lot better after the 3rd. So for instance, if you're Aquarius Lagna, this could be connected to your home situation, because Taurus is your 4th house. So there could have been some issues that came up in, like, maybe home repairs, home improvements, moving home if you were doing that, possibly matters connected to your children, education plans, and so on. Then what's happening? Then late into the night of June the 4th, Saturn turns retrograde till October the 23rd. Saturn will return to Capricorn on July the 12th till early next year. Yeah. Now, the few days before and after the retrograde period are the strongest. Because Saturn's the speed will slow down immensely, and therefore the Saturn energy is intensified and also internalized during the retrograde phase. So it can be felt as a time of limitation, of restriction, anxiety, fear can also come up. And this is especially so if you are experiencing a Saturn Dasha or a Saturn Antardasha Retrograde planets can just generally, they can surprise us by bringing forth events that are opposite to what we would expect. The momentum that we have achieved in Aquarius can actually feel lost for a few months as Saturn retreats to Capricorn to finish up its transit there. The retrograde factor can also indicate a strong desire for that planet's results, which causes us to try more diligently to gain those fruits. It's also time and an opportunity to retreat and redo some of the efforts pertaining to where Capricorn falls in your chart. Ultimately, the best results come from efforts made during a retrograde phase because it gives us the opportunity to perfect that goal. Yeah. I've actually made a separate video on this, which I've posted, so you can have a look there for further details. Yeah. Now, we've had an ongoing conjunction with Venus and Rahu at this time, receiving the gaze of Saturn. On June the 14th, the Venus-Rahu conjunction becomes exact in Aries. On the same day, on the 14th of June, Rahu moves into Bharani. And yet, on the same day, on the 14th of June, we have a full moon in Scorpio in 29 degrees at that Gandanta point. And the recently turned retrograde Saturn is aspecting both this full moon as well as the Rahu-Venus conjunction in Aries. So this is actually the highlight of the month, the climax. And after this, things will move into more comfortable, a more easier flow. By late evening on June the 18th, these challenging aspects will be behind us, and the remaining month will be more positive. So let's actually sort of like address each one of these. Now, all of these alignments are actually connected to each other. Whenever Rahu comes close to a planet, it tends to exaggerate its qualities. So what is Venus? Venus represents our relationships, money matters. It also rules Taurus, and thus it represents luxury, beauty, speech, food, all the sensuous pleasures. So Rahu with Venus can bring some very passionate attractions. It can bring the desire to get into a relationship urgently. It can also bring affairs outside of our main relationship. And being that it's in Aries, it can bring impulsiveness in relationships. And you also may feel overconfident in the areas that are ruled by Venus and represented by Aries in your chart. And now, because Rahu augments the energy of the planet it's with, it can also bring money from an unexpected source. Yeah, at this time. But I would say wait till after the 18th if you want to make important decisions concerning money or relationships, if possible. With Saturn's third aspect on Aries now, this can bring also some obstacles and delays in obtaining that or whom you desire at this time. Yeah. If you have that Venus-Rahu conjunction in your chart, you will, of course, feel the effects more personally. Aries, Taurus, and Libra will be most impacted now with this conjunction. Venus being the Lagna Lord of Taurus and Libra, and the conjunction taking place in Aries. On the same day, we see Rahu moving into Bharani, making an exact conjunction with Venus. And both Rahu and Venus go into the Scorpio Navamsha at that moment. Again, this suggests surprises, secret affairs, sudden endings in relationship matters. After all, we're talking about Scorpio. Money matters could now see some ups and downs. Not only is it Scorpio, but it's 8th from Aries, right? Because it's in Aries in the D1, and then it goes into Scorpio. So again, signifying endings and difficult transformation, right? Surprises and things like that. I will make a separate video on this Rahu transit into Parani and upload that in the next few days. So if this was not enough, on June the 14th, we have an intense full moon occurring, 29 degrees in Scorpio, in the nakshatra of Jyeshta, in the most difficult of all of the Gandanta points. Now that Gandanta full moon is occurring at the end of a water sign. And end of water always alludes to relationship issues, because water is the element associated with relationship, also with death and rebirth. And now it could be, because we're talking about Jyeshta, we're talking about Scorpio, it could be unhealthy or toxic attachments that you're dealing with at this time. So what is Gang? Gang means not, and Anta. Anta basically means ending. So once again, we are talking about letting go of perhaps unhealthy ways of relating to another. That's the theme here, with everything going on, with Rahu-Venus conjunction, Rahu moving in Parani, and the full moon at the same time. With Saturn's aspect from Aquarius, it could mean a final break from an old attachment, from an unhealthy attachment. Now, Jupiter's aspect on this full moon from Pisces suggests an ending that is perhaps good for us in the long run. Check, of course, where Scorpio falls in your chart for you to understand where you will be impacted. And this could, of course, very well be connected to the eclipse that came up in mid-May, which was also in the very, very beginning of Scorpio. Then what's happening? Then things get a bit easier. We have the sun's annual movement into Gemini from June the 15th till July the 16th. The sun will transit Gemini. Now, this is actually a good transit for the sun. Here it's free from all the malefic aspects. It's especially a good transit for if you're an Aries, if you're a Leo, if you're Libra, if you're Virgo. And on June 18th, we have a lovely Venus transit in its own sign of Taurus. And at this time, it will be sharing the space with Mercury here. So Venus transits Taurus from June the 18th till July the 13th. And Venus here is free from any malefic aspects. It's a great time for connecting with others, especially through networking, socializing, or just simply a note to say hello. If it's a Venus return for you, it's an excellent time to start a new relationship. And relationships are generally favored now. It's also a good time for making any purchases, especially if it's related to food, luxury items, beauty products, art, clothes, etc. If you're learning a new skill or hobby, this is a good time for that too. You can see some notable progress now. Now, late on the 27th, we see Mars move into its own sign of Aries, approaching a conjunction with Rahu. Here, Mars has just passed the Gandanta zone from the 26th, so you could be completing some tasks now. See what Mars rules in your chart to understand where that might play out. Now, moving into Aries, its own sign, Mars is confident and assured here. So it's a great time to take bold initiatives, start something new, take steps toward meeting your goals, and seek advice if you need it. Mars transits Aries from the 27th of June till August the 11th. This is an especially good transit for all the fire signs, including Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. On June the 29th, the morning of June 29th, we have a new moon in Gemini in the nakshatra of Ardra. Now, Rahu being the controlling planet of Ardra, we have to see where it's situated. And at the moment, it is 11th from the moon in Aries. Again, this can suggest making plans and self-orientated goals. There's an emphasis of the fulfillment of goals and a focus on more self-driven goals, because that's Aries, not Rahu there. Overall, this month can bring some relationship conflicts. It can bring some endings in the first half, but there's a big improvement in the second half of the month. It will feel easier and lighter. Again, there's a lot of focus on relationship changes and shifts, and we've seen this to be the theme since the beginning of the year. With that Venus retro transit, as well as the transits of the slow-moving planets. This has been going on since December of 2021. So, that's all for now. All the best, folks. Cheers.